What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LivBtr Podcast. I am your host, Jay Siano, CEO of Sabre Advisors. On today's episode, we have Eddie Hertzman, the founder of Athletech News, the premier media platform for the fitness and wellness industry. Eddie's a trailblazing entrepreneur, and previous to Athletech News, he launched the Sourcing Journal, a major leading trade publication for the apparel supply chain industry. Sabre and I are proud supporters of Athletech News, and we are looking forward to many of the events that we are working on together in the upcoming year. On today's episode, we explore all different things that are related to the fitness and wellness space. I hope you enjoy the episode.
I just want to have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we proud, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the LivBtr Podcast. This is your host, Jay Siano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just want to have peace.
On today's LivBtr Podcast, I have an amazing guest, Mr. Eddie Hertzman. Athletech News, so much more, but let's start there. That's how we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
So for my audience, give us a little background on yourself. Bring us forward. You could start as early as you want.
Well, it all started during the Ten Commandments,
There you go.
1984. Actually, it was 1984 during the Ten Commandments I was born. But we could fast forward a little bit. Like you said, you and I met because of Athletech News, which is a relatively new venture. It's been around for a few years. So I'm fairly new to this industry, the fitness, wellness, health space, if you will. My background really is supply chain.
Yeah.
Started out after school, I don't know. I was like the only one of my friends from NYU that didn't go into finance. Now, we could debate whether that was a good or bad decision. Went into the schmata industry, the 7th Avenue, literally where we are right now, like all the Garmentos.
Yeah.
And very quickly realized I don't want to be a Willy Loman. Brands come and go. I wanted to do something a little different. I met this guy, Munir. I called him the Pakistani James Bond. I mean, this was the coolest guy. He was traveling the world, and he was making the merchandise for everybody. I'm like, I want to work for you. He's like, what? At the time, having an office in Dhaka, going to Karachi was not really like a thing a lot of people did. So I begged him for a job. I mean, this guy sent me like middle seat economy, 30 hours all over the world to test me. I mean, but it was an amazing learning experience. And it was really the catalyst a few years later, or 2009, when there was a cotton crisis. No one really knew what was going on. Like, the prices keep going up. You couldn't hold anything. Okay. And I'm like, why is there no Bloomberg of supply chain? And so I'm like, let me create it. I didn't really create it because I thought I was going to build like a media empire. I thought I was going to create it so that my customers would stop bothering me every day and they would just place the orders and realize.
So you were finding a solution to their problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A few years later, you're doing $600,000-$700,000 in your bedroom. You're like, maybe I got something here. And so went all in. And within a couple of years, I realized that I either need to raise a lot of money or I really need a strong partner. I knew what I knew and I knew what I didn't know. And I think that's a very important thing. A lot of people know what they don't really look in the mirror and be honest with themselves about what they don't know. And I sent an email to Jay Penske. He just bought WWD, and I'm like, love to have a conversation with you. Guy emailed me back in like 8 seconds, had a meeting, term sheet within 6 weeks, took 6 months to close the deal, and the rest is history. Not only was that amazing experience for Sourcing Journal.
What year was that?
2017, we went into the office 2018. I mean, over the next 5 years, that business is 7-8x from when I sold it. So, but it was not about the deal per se that was the game changer. It was the education. It's getting to see under the hood of some of the biggest media brands in the world. And I watched him also grow, bought the Golden Globes, we're South by Southwest, took a majority stake or the largest stake in Vox, by Rolling Stone, Hollywood Report. I mean, it's like, wow. And, I'm not really a corporate guy. Mm-hmm. So I was competing or conflicted every day because I had it really good. Yeah. But I wanted to keep building. Yeah. And I ended up reading this report by CB Insights. I remember, like 2019. I don't know how I got my hands on it, but it was like a 70-page paper on like at-home fitness or something like that. The boxes and everything. And I'm like, I start Googling some of this. So I can't find any of this information. So, and I had that same gut feeling that I had back in the day with supply chain. I'm like, where is the Bloomberg of fitness and wellness? And so when COVID hit, I was like, well, how many episodes of Ozark could I watch at night? You know what I mean? I was still running Sourcing Journal. We set up everything remote. The business actually grew because, as we all know, the supply chain became front page news, which was really cool. I mean, the only downside to that is it took a little niche topic and made it everyone wanted to have. Bloomberg had their logistics corner. Everyone had their supply chain tracker. So, but we were there before, we were there during, and we're going to be there after. Long story short, I start this and literally am sending emails to myself. Then we go back to the office and I'm like, I have no interest in this, man. Like, I got it good. Like, at this point in my life, do I want to go home every night and send out MailChimps of aggregated stories? But every once in a while, I get a phone call from like a big brand, like, hey, can you do a story on us? I'm like, you read us? Or someone would email, hey, can I advertise? I'm like, and like just in the moment when you're about to give up, you're just like, let me just give it another 90 days, another 90 days. And then I started hitting a lot of traction. I don't know, like a lot happened. And I was very honest with Jay about, look, I really want to be a builder. And we had a very honest conversation. And I said, I think it's best for me to move on. I wanted to go all in. In my gut, I knew that I had to do it. And it's been only about 18 months, man.
That's crazy.
This is exceeding my expectation. In 18 months, I mean, we're going to hit, I think by the end of the summer, early fall, we'll have 100,000 subscribers.
Amazing.
You got about half of those will be operators, whether it's franchise, big box, independent. 25% of those will be personal trainers. And then you got everything in between. People like yourself. You got the investment community. You have all the service providers, whether it could be the gym equipment companies, the technology companies. I mean, the plunges and the saunas and the infra. So it's what I'm realizing. And then you have also the whole health community that starts to come in there. But now health is very confusing because it's not. Are you talking about kidney transplants and dialysis? Are you talking about metabolic health and so we got to define health a little bit and where Athlotech will play in that. But that's really the story. I also have an on-demand manufacturing business, which also came out of all of this because people kept calling me, hey, Jay's Pilates, can you make my clothes? And my first reaction is, of course I can. I've been doing this my whole life. What do you need?
Right. 10
T-shirts. What do you mean? I ship containers from like Vietnam. Like, what do you mean, bro?
Right.
And so I spent a year
Custom ink is over there.
Well,
right?
Well, the thing is, and it's funny you bring that up because everyone's like, well, I basically recreated a custom ink. And everyone's like, well, what's the difference? I'm like, well, that's really for a bar mitzvah T-shirt.
Right.
40th, you spend $25 on a T-shirt, they DTG it, whatever. You can't build a wholesale business off of that. You can't buy $25 T-shirts and then sell it at your CrossFit gym for $30.
Right.
So I've basically built my own technology, created a domestic supply chain where I could ship you one piece, $10, $12, $15, and now you're selling it, but there's no inventory. I basically become nominated suppliers for franchises.
Right.
Because they want to control, like you have these franchises all over that are going to local printers, creating whatever they want. So
consolidating, right? Giving.
I think the whole thing is
vertically integrating all these things.
I think the thing that's interesting about where we got to is I think a lot of times people are looking for the big idea. Mm-hmm. The big idea. And I'll tell you, man, I don't know. I don't think that anything I'm working on is a big idea in the context of like, this is a unicorn. Mm. But I don't necessarily focus on that. When I saw supply chain, there is and was WWD. It was owned by Condé. And I knew that they didn't really care at that time about the little classified ads, the button guy,
right,
the zipper guy, the cotton guy. I joke a lot and say, like, I'm like the best, or best is maybe a little grand, but like I'm the best studio apartment salesman. Mm-hmm. I'm waking up every day and say, I want to sell the most studio apartments. Now, we're in a big city like New York. People don't want to sell studios. You get started in studios. You want to, everyone wants to sell a $10 million.
Everyone wants to be Ryan Serhant.
But there's a lot of studios out there, man.
Yeah.
And the thing about selling a studio is that person wants to be treated like it is their penthouse.
Absolutely.
So when someone comes to you and they say, oh, I have a $20,000 advertising budget, and maybe that's the only advertising they're doing, or maybe it's 20% of their yearly spend, Well,
that's a lot of money.
What's the ROI? How do I do this? What do you mean HTML? What do you think? And if you're at a multi-billion-dollar company, how much attention can you give to that person? What's the quota? Sell more, sell more. You realize there's a lot of those people out there.
Especially in the fitness
business. But if you go back to the supply chain,
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to take 2 pages out of WWD, and I'm going to make that my singular focus. And I took a very early bet that the money, see, early on it was the merchant prints, the Mickey Drexlers. It was all about the creative guys, the designers, the runway show, the marketing. Today, the money is made or lost in the supply chain. You're wearing a black T-shirt, I'm wearing a black T-shirt. What's really the difference? A lot of it is you got the Sheens of the world, and we could have a whole conversation about their ethical supply chain or what they're doing, but they're using de minimis, they're shipping directly from China, they're not paying duty, which is legal, by the way. And so a lot of this has become a supply chain game. What makes Inditex one of the greatest retailers, Zara and Bershka, they have a supply chain that people have been studying for decades and can't replicate.
Yeah.
So that I made a bet that, okay, that little sliver is going to blow up, and then we saw sustainability get big and logistics get big. But I knew it was never going to be, I have a $5 million marketing spend.
Right.
But that's okay. I knew that I was selling studio apartments. And it's, again, in the fitness space, I would say it's very similar.
Yeah.
You talk about T-shirts. Do you know anyone in the world that says, I want to wake up and make 12 T-shirts for somebody? No, because you make like $3.80.
Right.
But if you could aggregate a lot of that, the difference is in all the years of manufacturing, very rarely, if not ever, did anyone pick up the phone and say, thank you for shipping me that order.
Right.
It was, it didn't sell that well. Oh, but we're going to reorder it, but we need 20 cents less.
Right.
Well, the labor, this went up. This business, thank you so much for sending us those 50 T-shirts. Oh my God, it came just in time for our run club, and everyone loved it. I'm like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Could we do more?
Right.
And how much more gratifying is it when you have a product or a service that fits a void, and versus me saying,
That
I'm a new water company.
Yeah.
I mean, it could maybe exist with enough grit and enough money, you can market yourself into something.
Sure.
Look what like the Logan Paul, whatever, with the Prime, like
it's
crazy. But
KSI. Logan
yeah,
Paul,
I mean, great. I
my
love
kids buy that shit in bulk, and it has
gonna
nothing to do with how it tastes.
I'm going to be honest. I actually like the lemon lime.
Do you?
I do, but I wouldn't know of it if it wasn't for them.
Not. It's all marketing.
But again, is it a premium product? I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you anything other than I know those guys are pumping it out.
And by the way, apparently it's not necessarily very good for you. Like you hear all the
Right.
stories that it's got so much caffeine in it that even my sons are like, I don't want to drink this anymore because I heard that it's really not good for me.
Some schools have banned the
That's what I mean,
caffeinated
yeah.
ones. But I think the point is, you could always force yourself into a crowded space and find a hole.
Yeah.
But I like waking up knowing that there is a space that we're winning in because maybe it's underrepresented, it's new, and the people are appreciative of the work that you're doing. Now, I'm also realistic that the second you catch on to something, there'll be 100 people right behind you trying to chase you.
Oh, 100%.
Now there's 50 different supply chain events and publications, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, but that's also flattery, right? But,
Of course.
So anyway, I gave you a really long roundabout
No, that's
answer,
great.
but-
I have a lot of questions, and I was very much looking forward to sitting down with you because now let's fast forward and talk specifically about Athletech because it's funny you're saying it's 18 months. I had no idea it was 18 months, but it does seem like you came out of nowhere and really built something special in a short amount of time that is so great to me because I am out traveling the country looking for concepts, talking to people, and you're taking all of this information and feeding it to me. So
Right.
you're actually making my life easier. Right, so I can only imagine what you're doing for people who are lazier than me and don't have their finger on the pulse the way that I do in the industry. And I have so many questions around, ultimately where the goal is with Athletech and kind of, just I want to get into your brain. I want you to explain to me exactly what it is you're doing.
So, what's the goal? I could give you an answer. Oh, one day I want to build this up and sell it, et cetera, et cetera. Honestly, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
I would love to build I love to build this up and then take some of that contribution every year, and instead of taking it out as a distribution, God willing we get there.
Yeah.
I'd like to do what people have been kind enough for me is invest in others, incubate others, build others. Look, turned 40 this year.
Love that.
I'm more tired than I was at 26. I'm up every night at 2 a.m. between both of these companies, and I think you could be a builder, but maybe you don't need to be the one starting at 0 on every idea.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that get to a certain point, the way I did with Sourcing Journal, that you come along and you give them some back office resources, you give them some liquidity, you give them some mentorship, and boom. And so we could bring that up together. And then also one industry takes a hit one year, one goes up. So I like the idea of diversifying that. I also think media is going to go through a lot. I like B2B. I think it's less resistant to the whatever AI is going to do. Mm-hmm. When you have events and you bring people together.
More resistant, not less resistant.
More resistant. Yeah. Sorry. AI can't put humans in a room and do an event. AI is not going to be able to get an exclusive interview. If you're doing listicles or you're just regurgitating a press release or 10 shoes to wear to blah, 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 or what so-and-so wore at the Oscars, that's going to be very commoditized. And if you're relying on programmatic advertising and clicks, I never liked that business. That's big business, but not a business I know and really want to compete in, especially in the way the world is going. So I really like B2B as a vertical. I think that Athletech, we're going to go wider and deeper. So I think we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Do I see a world where we have an ATN Pro, and an ATN consumer? Yes. Let me say I think that people need to be very, very clear on their vision, but they need to be agile in how they get there. I would be a little naive and also maybe a little egotistical if I said to you right now, I got it all figured out.
Sure.
I don't know if this industry is willing to pay for a subscription. Most B2B publications have a paywall of some sort. You go to Ad Age, paywall. You go to WD, paywall. I don't know if this is an industry because the information is not, you're not trading against it necessarily. Mm-hmm. Okay? What's the competitive edge? I don't know. I could be wrong, but a paywall is definitely a way you go. Events is normally a way you go. Virtual events is a way you go. Content is a way you go. Advertising, indirect, direct. So there is a blueprint of things that you do in media. What is going to be the thing that hits the most? I think we're still trying to figure that out. Sure. I've always taken the approach that if you build great content and you build an audience, and people get confused at the end of the day, what you're really selling is your audience, right? The content is a way to get the people there. Then you could do a lot. If you force things, you could maybe have it for a year or two and then it fizzles out. So I'm trying to listen to the industry right now. I talk to a lot of equipment companies. They want to sell to hotels. They want to sell to, residential buildings. They want to sell to active aging communities. You speak to the sauna people. They're trying to go more into hotels are redefining their wellness centers and their spas.
Sure.
Okay, so that's in my head. That's an area we should write more of.
Right.
Okay, longevity is a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that means I can monetize longevity, but I know that I need to do more content on that. Personal training. Personal training is
Who is the reader?
Well, that's the thing is, if you look at, let's say, our audience right now, 65% of our readers are owner-operators of facilities, whether it's a single operator, single unit, franchise, or big box. Then you got about 20-25% that'll be personal trainers. Then you got another, 10, 15, 20% that'll be the service providers. And then, again, when you say you only have 2-3% that's in the financial community, that's because how many people, there could be thousands of people that work at Crunch. There could be, 20 people that work at a PE firm that are doing deals. So totally. People get confused by people are like, 80% of my audience is CEOs. I'm like, that is statistically impossible. If there's 1,000 companies and there's one CEO in every company, that's 1,000 people. You can't have 1 million CEOs.
Right.
So that's where I look at these media kits sometimes and be like,
I'm calling bullshit.
100%. But again, you have to look at, I think what is scared people away, maybe that's not the right word, from entering and doing media in this space is the fragmentation is the opportunity, but it's also the challenge.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, if we're writing about commercial real estate, well, that may be really important to X percentage of the industry, but does it mean anything to a wearable company?
Right.
Does it mean anything to an at-home company? Does it mean anything? Okay, if we're talking about music licensing, well, what does that have to do with you necessarily? Or if we're talking about, I don't know, the newest TRX strap, that's great if I have a facility need to buy it, but maybe it doesn't mean anything to the guy that's doing the commercial real estate. So
of course.
you have to create different verticals of content.
How do you not lose people because you're so wide?
So I think what you have to do is you have to have your daily, these are the macro articles. These are the things that you want to know.
Yeah.
Really, no matter where you are in the industry, and then you create subcategories. You create sub-newsletters. And again, this is not a new idea. This is what every single publication does. And you start tailoring the content to that group, and then you're able to offer more specific advertising to that group.
Right.
And that's how
the eyeballs are more targeted, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you are a certification for a personal trainer, you're going to want to go into that that email. And if you are a commercial real estate executive, you're going to want to target all the potential franchise operators who are looking for their next space, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, but I do think there is just also that general news email that goes out every day that, Planet Fitness has a new CEO, or so-and-so acquires this, or this is the latest study that came out of Harvard.
Like industry news, right?
Every industry has it, man.
Yeah.
Every industry has it.
And it's amazing to me, being so entrenched in the space that this, there's still such a void, it's a multi-trillion-dollar business.
Well,
industry, I should say. Yeah.
But remember the two things I said. I'm selling studio apartments, and it's extremely fragmented.
Yeah.
So you got to be willing to spend millions of dollars. We said 18 months, but I really told you it's 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that your deal size is never going to be that big.
Right.
Now, that doesn't scare me. But again, if you want to deploy capital, if you're a media company, you said you could invest in this and this, I can see why people have ran away. Now, also, what happens in any business is the legacy players get complacent because they don't have to do very much because there's no competition. So if you're a brand and you want to advertise and there's two people, that's where you go to. You start to say, well, there's more to this industry than a brick and mortar facility and a squat rack.
Mm-hmm.
What about everything else that's going on? Well, what happens if I start talking about that everything else, and let's see how the industry reacts to it? So I think that's the other thing that kind of happened. There are some people out there, very, very specific, and I call it like the Tower Records syndrome. Like they didn't evolve. They're still selling DVDs, and the whole world went to streaming. And then they wake up one day
to buy Netflix.
They wake up one day and they're like, "What happened?"
Yeah.
Well,
and they had a chance to buy Netflix.
Well, everyone has a chance.
Yeah.
See, I think what people underestimate is.
No, sorry, that was Blockbuster.
Blockbuster, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a crazy story. I think what people underestimate is, I do podcasts like this. I talk. I come across as like, this like confident New York guy that maybe has all the answers. Bro, I'm like a ball of fucking anxiety. like, I got coaches and psychologists and taking melatonin to go to bed every night because my mind is spinning. And
have you always been that way? See, now we're getting into the LivBtr portion of the podcast.
For as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
For as long as
Are you doing things to focus on your own self-care along the way? Like, are you changing things in your life as you're learning more about all of these fitness, wellness tools?
Well, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
You said something before we got on the air. Every day you want to be a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. I think life's like a ladder, right? You're not going to hop to the top rung. It's like, how do you keep stepping up every single day? I do think, and maybe this sounds counterintuitive, a little bit of that agita and a little bit of that angst, if channeled properly, could be very powerful.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of carefree people out there. I met this one.
Well, you can't. I completely agree with you, and I think where you're going. And it's funny. I had a conversation with my wife about this morning. Like, I meet a lot of very successful people. I advise a lot of very successful people, and they all have similar character traits. Like, they are absolutely focused on the end goal and maximizing, every single day in every capacity. And oftentimes doing things they don't feel like doing. Like, it just comes with the fucking territory. You can't accomplish anything great. You can't build anything huge if you're not 100%, 200% focused on the prize. And every single day when you get punched in the face 15 times a fucking day, it's not even 11 a.m., you just got to keep going.
It's funny you use the punch analogy. So one of my editors a couple months ago goes, man, how do you deal with all these headaches? I go, let me explain to you. If I punch you in the face right now, you're going to get hurt and you're probably going to fall down. But a prize fighter could take a pounding for 10 rounds and they're still standing.
Yeah, you're
conditioning
yourself. I just spoke about this morning. It's huge.
And so
that's why I asked you the original question.
I will say this. I think there's been a massive glamorization of entrepreneurship.
Which is, I think, very terrible.
It's horrible.
Terrible.
Horrible, horrible, horrible. I also think, there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there selling, swipe up, learn how to do this, learn how to make more money. I'm going to show you how to
People who have never even done it.
If you're making so much money in real estate, why are you selling a class on how to sell real estate?
Exactly. Unless you're Ryan Serhant.
I love what he's doing. Look, I watched his thing and I said, you know what? Got to give him a lot of credit.
Dude, he's a friend, and I am telling you, he is an absolute business.
But if you look at how I was talking to my brother about this because we both watched the show. I said, Eric, how many hours a day do you think that guy works?
What was his answer?
He can't answer because I don't know because
I do.
Every hour of the day, probably.
Oh, it's insane.
And I give him credit because, I have a social media team. Yeah. And she's like, Eddie, once a week, twice a week, can you make a clip?
Yeah.
One of the episodes, he went to the Empire State.
And your clips are great, by the way.
I'm getting better.
Yeah. And they're important. Because you don't realize how many people are watching them until you do it, and people
start commenting,
right? Like, it's crazy. Even more so than the likes and the comments on the actual platform.
Well, I'm not trying to be a contrarian. I just think that there needs to be more truth. Like I just said, like, I'm a ball of anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, that's the honest truth.
Yeah, I love that.
I could, we're all wearing our nice fancy black attire and our nice watches, and we could come off like we know it all. But at the end of the day, I wake up paranoid. Now, one of my favorite books is
but I think that's another trait of somebody who's...
Well, it is because...
I'm the same way, dude. I wake up every morning like it's my first fucking day in business.
One of my favorite books is Only the Paranoid Survive. And I think that what happens is you sell a deal. Instead of celebrating in the moment, are they going to come back? How are we going to make sure they're successful? What are we going to do? Now, one thing that, my coach has said is, I ran Sourcing Journal for 15 years. And every year in media, you start at zero. Mm-hmm. What happens if they don't come back? Eddie, is there any evidence that everyone's not going to come back? Mm-hmm. Some are going to come back. Some are going to come back bigger. Some are going to be on pause. New people are going to come in. And over every year, we grew. I think if I didn't have that internal... If I didn't think like that, I wouldn't say, how am I going to make sure I deliver? Mm-hmm. How am I going to go out of, I'll go to the dinner and meet this client. I'll go to their internal conference. Like those extra steps to ensure that they are satisfied and you're doing what it takes to have a happy customer. But I think if you're complacent or, I don't know, I do think there's like this, a little bit of this...
I just want to read this quote quick because you're making me think of what I read this morning, and it's Mike Amiri, obviously a fashion guy. Work like you're losing, especially when everyone tells you you're winning. Your humility is the key to your longevity.
I tell people all the time, it's a great quote. You can't take compliments to the bank.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I saw Scotty Scheffler actually. He did an interview, and I'm paraphrasing it, and he said, I can't listen to the press. And he said something like, I can't listen. He said, why? Because when things are great, this guy won like 3 weeks in a row or something on tour, He goes, if I listen to the press and I start to believe the hype, I'm going to get out of my head. And when things are bad and they talk negatively of me, that's also going to get into my head. So I don't, up or down, I got to just do my thing.
Yeah, neutrality.
And so I think it's very interesting. And I think we live in this like social media, like where everyone... one thing my coach once said to me is, I'll put out a piece of content and you'll have 50 good comments and one person will dig you and I can't sleep. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah.
Should I reach out to them? Should I explain my position? Like send them a box of what do I do? He goes, would you like the success of Elon Musk? I go, I mean, who wouldn't really, right? Because half the world hates him probably at any given time.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm learning that you're not always going to be right. You're not always going to be. You got to just deal. You just got to. If you want to occupy that space, you know, we're talking. Hey, Ryan's great. I'm sure there are people out there be like, oh, the guy's got to have a show. The guy's got to have a. Everyone has an opinion. I think the guy's doing a tremendous job, and takes his own money, starts his own brokerage. I mean, there's a lot of risks in that you're not seeing, and I think that's what people just say. Oh, look what he has. The guy had nothing when he started.
Right.
Nothing. He made that himself, and I have massive respect for him. I don't know him. I'd love to have a conversation. I think massive respect.
Yeah.
And so I was alluding to, he went, with everything going on, he still has a crew. It goes to the top of the Empire State Building to record that little video. And I will tell you something. When I watched that show, I called my head of social. I said, this guy's got time to do this. I said, Saskia, once or twice a week, no excuses. You're forcing me to do it now.
It's that important.
You're forcing me because how is he doing it?
Yeah.
And you could argue, I just sold a $100 million apartment.
No,
I don't need it.
He, you know, knowing Ryan so long and how close him and Gary Vaynerchuk were and spending time with them together and really seeing Ryan launch his vlog and kind of being alongside for that ride, you know, he very much, more than I think anybody, understands how important it is to get attention, right? Because attention, especially when you're in sales, is power. If you don't have attention or you can't get somebody's interest or eyeballs that matter on a piece of property, right? How do you do that? How do you differentiate yourself from the other tens of millions of real estate brokers that are out there? And ultimately, you know, he's creating, not only is he creating his brokerage, but he's creating a platform to train other people regardless of what company they work for. And that, I mean, just genius, you know, absolutely genius.
The only thing I think that people have to be cognizant of is don't think you're going to, you know, open a TikTok channel and an Instagram account, do a couple cute videos, and all of a sudden you're going to be the top broker in New York. How many years has this guy been going after it?
It's crazy.
And he's putting people on his show now, the same way Bravo put him on a show, creating a platform for them.
Yeah.
But it's a process. You know, it's a quick 10 years.
Having worked on listings with Ryan, you know, and what's amazing is, I mean, he's a big celebrity, and so many people, like the person who has the $50 million mansion, they just want to meet Ryan. Like, that's what it is. And then ultimately it's like, yes, all of the bells and whistles and the things that he's built that are able to get their house, the attention, their property, the attention it deserves, is ultimately what brings them in to sign along with him. But everybody's so enamored with what he's, with who he is, and what, you know, so it's amazing. Like, and obviously star power, like, you know, being a celebrity allows you to do things that being a regular person walking the street.
There's also a mathematical equation, all this. How much would it cost me to buy this media versus create my own media? So like there is all this investment, all this time he's putting into it. The traditional thing is, let's buy an ad in the New York Times. Let's buy an ad on the radio. Let's buy an ad on whatever.
But he'll do it all. He'll get a, you know, he'll buy a billboard. He'll do, you know, but he ties it all into everything else.
He's producing the content.
Correct.
He's got his own production company.
He's his own media.
So massive respect for him. But again, I think people need to look a little bit behind and see how long it's taken him, how much sacrifice.
Yeah, it's insane. And his days are, to your point earlier, I mean, there's not many people that work like him.
What time does he wake up in the morning, do you know?
Yeah, like 4.
And what time does he probably go to sleep?
He's at the gym at, you know, 5, and his day goes from there. I don't know about the end of his day, but I will tell you that I've been in his company many times at an event in New York at night where he has a meeting in California, you know, relatively early the following day. So, I mean, and that's normal.
Right.
You know, so it's, it's not for the...
And that's a decision people have to make. Like, and I'm starting to think about this even for myself. Everyone wants the success, but like, do you want your life to be like that?
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer. I think everyone thinks like, I think it's wrong to sell everyone that everyone could be Ryan. Not every real estate agent could be Ryan. Not every movie star could be Tom Cruise. And you know what? My media company, I'm not going to be the next Condé Nast probably. That's okay. That's okay. You could really define success however you want to define it. You asked about have I changed
Yeah.
Like, how do I live a little bit better? There's a line in recovery. Not that I've been an addict, but there's a line like they say, like when the pain of staying the same, when the pain of changing is easier than the pain of changing, when the pain of changing is easier than the pain of changing this change. Let's say that again. When the pain of changing is easier than the pain of staying the same, you change.
Yes.
And it could be little things. Like for years I would eat and always get sick. Turns out I had a dairy intolerance. Then I start popping the lactate pills 10 times a day. I'm now at a point, I'll go to the nicest Italian restaurant with you, and I will just stay away from that.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like that the next day.
Sure.
Okay. I know how I feel when I exercise. I know how I feel when I don't exercise. I had so many gut problems for traveling to Asia. I mean, I had so many bacterial infections. I'd taken so much Cipro. I had to go doctor after doctor after doctor. I had SIBO levels so high, like they didn't even know they didn't know it went that high. It took me a long time of adjusting diet. And I'll tell you, all of the doctors, all of the pills, all of this, how much does stress affect all of this? How much does sleep affect all of this?
Sure.
So I don't want to sit here and preach like I got to figure it out, because I don't. I'm hyped up on a lot of caffeine. I don't sleep really well.
Yeah.
I wore the Oura Ring for 2 months, and all I realized is that inefficient sleep.
Yeah.
But I didn't really need a ring to tell me that. First of all, I love Oura, by the way, and people swear by that product. But like, I know if I'm sleeping 5 hours, 6 hours this night, 4.5 this night, 6.5 this night, like going to bed different times every night, waking up different times every day, that is not good.
No, your circadian rhythm is completely
So do we need an MD to say that?
No,
that's not,
but and the funny part is that you know the answers to the quiz, and you would feel so much better if you actually started to really focus.
And I think the thing is, you start the pain. Like I said,
Totally,
so you start to say to yourself, okay, you talk about recovery.
Yeah.
So I was always the guy that went to the gym 5-6 days a week, but then I go play golf with my brother the next day, and I'm taking 4 Tylenol to get through the round.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
In your late 30s, your 40s, you shouldn't be popping 4 Tylenol to get to a round of 18 holes. Oh, my back, this hurts. So now I understand why people talked about, okay, it was stretching, right? I always neglected that. But now it is the hot and cold therapy. It's these other things. So now Tylenol is not, or Aleve is not the solution to that problem. And if I don't start investing in those recovery, modalities, whatever, then I'm going to have bigger problems down the line.
Completely.
So I just think now I have the education and I'm cognizant.
And the access. You have no excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I would say that there's still a long way I need to go. And I know that the only way I'm going to wake up earlier is if I go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
And I know if I go to bed earlier, I got to take my meetings with Asia earlier. I got to take them first thing in the morning. I can't eat dinner at 9 o'clock every night. Can't go to the gym at 8 o'clock. So there's a lot I like to change, but I'm in the building phase. I'm running 2 companies. Yeah. I don't know if I have much of an alternative.
Right.
What I'd love to get better at is saying the word no.
Yeah. That's how we started our discussion.
That FOMO, oh man, what happens if I don't have that call? Like everyone writes me on LinkedIn. Everyone's pitching me something to invest in. Everyone wants me to write about them. And I'm a big networker, and I think that's super, super, super important. But one thing I work on with my coach is time block.
Yeah.
If I don't block an hour here, an hour there, an hour, I will never get, like I said this on a podcast a few weeks ago. You could be busy all day doing nothing.
Yeah, on our homie Kenny Santucci's podcast.
Yeah.
I was with him Sunday. Yeah, love him.
And so it's like, if I don't drive revenue, I'm not going to have a business. If I don't focus on editorial, I'm not going to have to. Yeah. So I got to block out hours every single day. Even HR stuff, like everything, accounting, like.
I think that what it's interesting too, because I think, the robotic, almost boring behavior of being so dialed in with your day is the best way to maximize, right? Like you knowing exactly what you're going to focus on for that day and just checking the boxes and executing that, and then going off to the next day and so on and so forth allows you to get so much further, because everybody can waste so much time. 2 things that you said that are interesting, because I just had this discussion with my partner, Ann Malum, who you know. And one thing is, like, when we're talking to other entrepreneurs, I use the word sacrifice. And she's like, I don't agree. It's not sacrifice, because to me, in order to build Solid Core, I had to be so passionate that it was my life. I never felt like I was sacrificing. I really enjoyed the process, or I could never have done it to the extent that I did it, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with that to a certain extent, which is why I pivoted the way I operate and what my area of expertise is, which is similar to what you did when you decided that you were going to make a pivot, right? Like, and you saw an opportunity and so on and so forth. But I do think that there are sacrifices, for anybody who's busy and busting their ass to, make sure that they're trying to keep all the balls in the air. And all we have is our time. And you're going to either sacrifice time with your family, your wife, your team, your friends, there is sacrifice.
But you could even rephrase, we could debate, should we use a different word, but I would agree with you. I think it's the word sacrifice. I talk a lot about passion, and maybe I come off sometimes as being insensitive. When you are good at something, you become more passionate about it. And the better it becomes. Like, so as that business was growing and working, I'm sure she got a lot more excited, a lot more into passionate. Oh my God, next one. So it's easier to momentum, like I told people, if I just strictly followed my passion, I'd be an unemployed golfer. What I would think about sacrifice is sacrifice also shows up in different ways. Hey, someone calls me, would you like to do this consulting project? It's $50,000. Yeah, I would like to do that.
Right.
Maybe I can't. Because that is a short-term win, taking my eyes off the prize of the long-term opportunities that I have in my two businesses.
Right.
Is that a sacrifice?
It's a distraction.
I'm not independently wealthy. That's a material amount of money.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's say I take that money. Now I'm sacrificing my attention on these businesses.
Right. And that's funny. That's the second part of what Ann and I were talking about, where she said straight up, like the way her brain works is she will take that $50,000 and break it down into how much she's actually getting paid an hour to execute that. It's the only time I've ever spoken to someone who literally dissects every single thing that they're doing down to the fucking minute of what the ROI is, which is why she's as successful as she is.
Now, what is sacrifice? Let's say at the end of the year you have a profit.
Yeah.
Where I am in my life, I'd like a distribution.
Right.
I'm still, I want to get married. I want to have a family. I want to build my life. My partners already are remarkably successful, so it's going to be less material to them. Maybe I need to sacrifice not taking that distribution and reinvest it back into the business. Or maybe I need to hire more people with that profit so that I could reclaim some of my time so I actually am a healthier person, a more sane person. So sacrifice doesn't have to mean literally like, some extreme thing but I think without question, you have to make decisions with your time, you have to make decisions with your money, and you do have to. My coach says, you're very good at goal setting, but you're not very good at necessarily sacrificing. And so he'll say something to me like, would you invest $75,000 to make $1 million next year? I go, well, who wouldn't? Assuming you have the cash.
Right.
He goes, well, you. I go, what do you mean? He goes, why don't you take $75,000 out of your Apple stock or whatever you got and invest it in the Eddie stock? And I don't want to hear you talk about a single consulting project at all. Pay yourself out of that. Because if your businesses continue on the trajectory that they are, you're going to outperform any consulting project, any stock that you have. So just don't buy the Apple or NVIDIA, buy the Eddie stock. You have to almost think about your money differently.
That's so interesting.
You're thinking that you're losing $75,000 because you're taking it, putting it into your savings or your checking, and you're supplementing your income. So he's going to say you got two options. Sacrifice. Do you need that car in the city? Do you need to play this round of golf? Do you need the Armani jacket? These are all luxuries, by the way.
Yeah.
Or if you do want that, I don't think it's wise for you to take that consulting project, because that consulting project, if we take Ann's methodology on an hourly basis, blah, 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 it's not getting you any closer to the goal. You didn't leave Sourcing Journal and Penske to do that. You left to build these businesses. You have an obligation to your investors. You have an obligation to your employees. You have an obligation to yourself to live and honor the words that you said. Like, let your words and actions should align. You want to build these things, go and build it. On your deathbed, are you going to regret, if let's say, did you do everything you could to make these things a success? Well, no. Why? Well, I was busy with this, this, and this. You don't want that. You want to know you gave it all, and if it worked, great. If it doesn't work, you left no stone unturned. But when he said that to me, I was like, wow, it's powerful. I don't know why. He said it to me in so many different ways, but I'm like, maybe you're right. So is that a sacrifice? I don't know if it's a literal. Yes, it's to me. It's I'm taking some money. You got to think about money differently.
Yeah.
Ann talks a lot about that. I follow her on social media. The way she treats money, the way she thinks about money. Money for a lot of people is like they acquire it to buy something. Mm-hmm. People that really have a lot of money, ultimately, they acquire money to acquire things that ultimately generate more money. And then people listen to that, they get upset. Well, that's only the rich can do that.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'll tell you, I'm a big believer in I'm on the board of this charity. And I remember when they asked me to be on it, I was like 33 or something, and everyone in the room was like 60. And they give me this thing like, what percentage of your, of your estate would you like to leave to the charity when you die? I go, whoa, God, I don't have an estate, and I really hope I'm not dying anytime soon. And then everyone starts talking about the money they're giving to the charity every single year. I had to be very honest with them. I'm like, guys, I'm just not at a place in my life where I can make these type of financial commitments. Like, if maybe I'm not the right person for this board seat. I said, look, I have a publication. I have access to a couple other, I will get you media. I will help publicize this in exchange. And that's what they ultimately wanted. But what I realized is I don't have to wait till I have that estate. Every Friday I give a donation. It could be 36, it could be 50, it could be 100. It's the same thing with investing. It's the compounded interest.
Right.
You think about, $100 a month, $1,000 a month. You go and buy that pair of Nikes, or you put that away, and by the time you wake up one day, you have something. And you could say it's the same thing with business. Mm-hmm. So we talk about, Ryan and his social media. Oh my God, I sent this video out and 83 people liked it. Oh my God, I did this video and 400 people looked at it. What? It's not worth it. Jay, let me go, I'll do something else with that time. Wrong. Because that's compounded interest. Over time, the 84 likes become 8,400 likes, 84,000 likes. If you look at it from day one, no, but in 20 years from now, you wake up and you have millions of dollars in a 401k so you could retire. The $87 a week they're pulling out of your paycheck at 23 seems ridiculous.
Yeah. It's delayed gratification.
That is it. Whether it's the marshmallow thing they did with the young kids.
That's the answer.
That is what no one is talking about. And I don't care what you say. You want to call it delayed gratification? It is sacrifice in some extent.
100%.
Bless you. It's sacrifice.
Yeah, of course. Because you know what? Those Nikes at the time are like, a young kid, that's all my kids want. They want that thing. They want, the shiny object.
And then, the other irony is you spend so much time trying to acquire things to impress people.
Yeah, that you don't even like.
And then you realize
a step further.
You start to get the things,
yeah. And
you start hanging out with the people that you want to impress, and you realize that they don't really care about those things. And then to your point, long enough, there was a great saying about it. I don't remember, but it's like in the 20s, all you do is you care about what people think. In the 30s, I forget what it is, but ultimately by the time you're 40 or 50, you don't care what anyone thinks anymore.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is I've gotten to the place now where there's so many people that are all hat, no cattle. Mm. I don't want to fake it till you make it. I just want to be really real. I don't want to hire anyone that I can't afford. I don't want to have a company that's only surviving because of a round I raised. I'd rather have a small business that's profitable, that I know I could afford my team. I know I could afford my lifestyle. There's always risks.
Yeah.
I don't want to take a house that I can't afford the mortgage on.
Isn't that the way it's kind of supposed to be?
It is, but I think we got
for sure.
Also, the world's not. Everyone's not supposed to live in a multi-million-dollar home. Everyone's not supposed to drive a Mercedes. Not everyone's supposed to be a billionaire. Not everyone's supposed to be There's only one person that has the Olympic gold in gymnastics. Yesterday. It's nothing wrong with being silver and bronze, but the idea that we're all going to be gold medalists in life, we could all be gold medalists in different aspects of life.
Sure.
But I think expectation setting is so very important. We talk. I'm a big golfer. I play a lot. My brother has never taken a lesson. The guy's a single digit, and he could go out and shoot, 38, 39, and it'll make you cry. Because he doesn't even warm up. He picks up the club. And not only that, he can imitate every golfer on tour and start doing their swings and hit the ball down the middle and do this. And I will drive 2 hours every Saturday, take 2 hours of lesson on a course with the pro, blah, blah, blah. And finally, I've gotten into the low 80s. But the thing is, I know that it's unrealistic for me to I want to be a scratch golfer. I don't have the time. I live in the city. But if I set the goal of I want to be a mid to low 80s golfer, that is achievable. If I say to you right now, I want to build a 8-figure media company, that is achievable. I say I want to be a multi-billionaire media tycoon. Are you buying cable networks? What are you doing that's going to get you there? So I think that's the other thing. Most people don't get to where they want to go because they actually don't know where they want to go. They don't have that very definitive goal in mind.
Yeah. Or they're not even necessarily thinking about the game that they're playing and if it's even possible to achieve that status and those numbers in the game they're playing.
I also think you have to decide, what is it that you really want? Is it money? Do you want to be a builder? Do you want to be famous? Do you want to, if you look at sheer economics, how does so many people acquire wealth? It's you look at the PE model or stuff, these people buy other people's assets. Mm-hmm. So what did I say to you earlier? Maybe I don't have to start the next 10 publications.
Sure.
Maybe I need to invest and acquire the next 10.
0 to 1 is the most difficult thing to do.
So, and I've done that multiple times. Yeah. And so you start to learn, now you acquire that portfolio. And so I just think it's thinking it into existence. You know what happens? You start saying that, people start calling you.
Yeah.
Hey, I have this idea I want to pitch you. Whoa. Good ideas, somehow money finds it's I don't know how. I don't know how, but somehow it just works out that way.
It does.
And so I also think if you have the ideas and you have the reputation, you're able to, and you have the network, you can always find a way. But then also, is there a sacrifice?
Right.
You willing to take a line of credit, put your name on it? Are you willing to?
I love, I'm in the real estate business, and I love talking to people about real estate deals that want to have equity in deals without putting any skin in the game. It's just I think it's so common. And by the way, anybody that I meet, if they're not willing to bet on themselves, it's a non-starter, right? Anybody who's in business has to bet on themselves on some level. Because is a bank going to give you a loan without personally guaranteeing that? It's just not realistic.
And look, sometimes people have to think about it. Is it worth taking the second mortgage on the house, quitting your job, giving up the pension or the 401k? Sometimes the answer is no.
Of course, which is why there's employees.
And look, I will tell you, I had bronze handcuffs. If I had silver handcuffs, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Right.
You could have paid me enough to give up the dream.
Right.
Because there is some point where it's just so much harder.
Right.
To go out and do it. And I don't.
And there's no guarantees.
And I don't mean that in a negative way, because I had a great life and they were great to work for.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would have been true to myself if I wouldn't have.
You would have had regrets at a certain point.
Yes.
Well, we are winding down. We're beyond winding down, and obviously could have spoken for another several hours, so we'll have to have a part 2. So just close us out. Any closing thoughts here? We went all over the place. Tie it together for us, Eddie.
Final thoughts. I think a lot about what we talked today is the illusion versus the reality. And, I think people, what I hope to do with Athletech is have more serious business conversations around fitness and wellness. That could be highlighting really successful companies. That could be talking about the deals. A lot of times, so-and-so company was sold. No, it was an acqui-hire. They were extremely in debt. They literally just bought the liabilities and hired the team. That happens every day. There's nothing to be, but we need to just have honest reporting on what's going on. And sometimes you learn a lot from someone that's this didn't work out. Yeah. And let me tell you why this didn't work out.
Back to transparency, what you were saying.
So I think it's there's things that I know and there's a lot of things I don't know. One of the reasons I wanted to be an entrepreneur is because I knew that I rely on a lot of other people. I didn't see myself sitting in front of a computer doing spreadsheets all day. That's okay. So that means I need a really great accountant. I need a really great controller. I get these legal documents. My head goes crazy to read 20 pages. Call Philip, 2 seconds, he's done. So I am not a great editor. We need great editors. So if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I think people don't think about that. So I am nothing more than a conductor, bro.
Yeah.
I can't play the music. So I could write the music. If I don't put together the best orchestra, and at the end of the day, I'm going to be sitting there. So, and I stole that from Steve Jobs. But
I love that. Yeah.
But I realize that. So that's why, for me, human capital is so important. I'm not running a factory. So without the right people, even in a factory, people are everything. And I think that I don't believe they're commodities. I never take fire them, find somebody else. I think but employees should also think about this differently, because employees have become very, every 2 years I'm going to flip. This won't offer me more money. There needs to be a little bit of a return to appreciate the company you work for. The employer should invest in the employee. Everyone kind of takes that ride together. It's very hard.
A little bit more traditional.
A little bit, and I do think there's a little bit of a pivot right now, because people are more focused on creating profitable companies. The gig economy is blowing up, and so people now, I have so many freelancers contacting me. Could I write for you? Could you pay me every week? Do you have a job? So the 2 years of I'm going to live at home and become an influencer and make money, I'm going to get free trips. What you realize after a couple of years is, while it's great to get flown to a vacation destination for free, you can't pay your bills with that. So
yeah.
No one's saying don't do it, but just a little bit of kind of reset back to reality a little bit. But what's going to happen in 5 years, God willing, you and I are talking, and there'll be another bubble, and oh my God, this company raised this, and this company raised this, and this company raised this. But if more people were less focused on how much money they raised and how big their company was and how many employees they have, and said, what's a good product that actually the market needs, and focus on building a profitable company, you're going to sleep better at night.
Yeah.
And then the rest will take care of itself. With a profitable company, you can raise, you could sell, you could acquire. That's where people should be focused on.
Yeah.
I call most CEOs today are chief raising officers.
Yeah.
Their whole purpose is to raise money.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think you gave us a lot of different things to think about and tied it all together very well, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we proud, but everybody around prosperity. I just wanna have peace.